Hi everyone, Lydia here, and today we're going to talk about drywall bidding. So to start things off, I'm not going to get into hard prices because they vary wildly depending on where you live, how busy things are. Our prices here are higher probably than most places are going to be just because we have a shortage and houses are selling for $1 million plus here. So prices are a little bit different. But there are some things that we can go through that can make bidding easier, and then also some easy formulas to figure out what your footage is. So first things first, when we're looking at plans, so Steve sent me over just some generic plans here. We have our square feet, and it's really important when we're looking at bidding, we are not going to be going off of this floor footage. Because when we look, all it's doing is kind of giving us our ceiling, actually, because all of this is going to be ceilings, but it's not counting into all of the extra walls, all of the corners, everything that's going on here. So when we look at bidding, what we can do is we can take this footage here. So say it's a 2,000 square foot house. So if we have a 2,000 square feet, so I'm just talking floor footage, and we times it by 5, that'll give us 10,000 board feet. So as you can tell, if you're bidding off of square feet, people are going to be like, oh, that's a great bid. You got it all day. But it's going to be completely wrong. So we're going to have 2,000 square feet times 5 equals 10,000 board feet. Now, depending on what kind of board you're going to be installing or hanging will depend on how much board you order. So if we're going with 48, which is 4 foot, so 4 feet wide, 12 feet long, that would be 209 boards. If we go with 54, which is 4.5, which is what you're going to be typically doing for 9 foot, and we have a 12-foot board, that's 186 boards. So typically you're going to be doing this 12-foot size right here just because it cuts down on joints so much. So let's say we did a 4 by 8 or 48 by 8, that would be 313 boards. That is that much extra butt joints, flats, everything that you're going to be having to do. So that's another thing to take into consideration when you are ordering board is you definitely want to do 12 foot unless the space doesn't make it work. And sometimes you do need to do 2 orders. Sometimes you need to order 12 foot and then sometimes you need to order 8 foot depending on the job. If you can get it down into the basement, that one's really common. And it's also smart too to go ahead and order before you sometimes get your framing up for a basement. You can kind of just have it stocked, have it down there, and then that way they're not having to figure out how to get the boards downstairs because that can be a big problem. But same thing here. So if we did 40 or 54 by 8, that'd be 261 boards. So it definitely is better to do 12-foot boards. Just really cuts down. But that's kind of a good estimate here. You can also look at USG also has a wallboard estimator here, and your area of square feet is not going to be floor footage. Again, we're going to go off of board footage here. So say we had 10,000 square feet, 54 times 8. It'll go ahead and give me all of my calculations, and then you can change also what board footage you're using. So say we're going to do, let's do 54 by 10. That would be 223 panels. Where is it? 54 by 12. Okay. That'd be 186. So as you can tell, it's the same formula that they're using here with the times 5 to give you the numbers. But what's nice is it also has how much mud you need to finish the job. So we typically are using multiple brands of mud, but at least you can kind of get an idea of how much you're going to use. But a lot of that also is going to depend on your level of finish. So now that we have our board footage figured out, and it will change a little bit, I always add like 5% extra on there for damaged board, for waste. You also need to take into consideration, I'm going off of everything just being straight up one height, no vaults. If there's a lot of vaults, that's also going to add extra board. So, you know, the 5 is a great place to start. It also adds for a little extra because the 5 is coming from, you know, your ceiling, and then typically every room has about 4 walls. So then if you add 5, it allows in for some waste. It also allows in for less joints, and then, you know, kind of helps with the damaged board. But once you have your board footage done, then you're going to go ahead and times that times your square footage price. And your square footage price can vary a lot. And, you know, number-wise, I'm not going to get into it because I'm not going to say what we're bidding, and I'm not going to, you know, say this is where you should be at. because I don't know what your company looks like. But a safe way to do it is think, okay, I have how many days in here? If it's a complicated job, if it's a smooth wall, if it's all wrapped windows, if it's, you're the trim carpenter pretty much going on, if there's, no base trim and you're having to go through and do all of that, if there's like really specialty things, you're gonna need to be quite a bit higher than you would be for something that's just straightforward spec. And I would say, if you're doing a texture, a smooth wall should be, you're gonna have how many more extra days in there. And that's what I kind of try and think about too when I'm bidding. Like, okay, this is gonna take me, tape one day, top, skim, if everything goes well, plus the hours that you're gonna have in there, materials, everything that you need to get to the job site. You also need to think about how much time is involved in that. So kind of like start with your price. So say we did 10,000 board feet at $250 a foot, and I'm including hanging with this. And another important thing to mention is when you're bidding, you really need to be specifying, am I supplying the board or is the builder supplying the board or the client? A lot of times the client will just go ahead and supply the board, take care of that, get the delivery, and then we show up and then we take care of the taping materials and then the hanging materials like screws, stuff like that. But that will also be huge because board is not cheap. So who's going to be paying for that is very, very important. And don't get yourself into a spot where you're bidding and you're winding up paying for the board and then you lose all of your profit because it was eaten up in materials. So let's say we've got 10,000 board feet. It's going to go a custom hand texture. We've got wrap windows. We've got a vault. Let's say we go at, let's go at $250 a foot. And again, this is just not a hard number, just kind of throwing out numbers. So then we do 10,000. Let me get out my calculator. I'm not a math person, so you guys just have to bear with me here. 10,000, and I'm sure it's super simple. Okay, $25,000. Yes, I could have probably done that in my head if I thought. Anyway, $25,000. So if I'm at $25,000, so what am I going to be paying my hangers? If I'm paying my hangers 75 cents a foot, that'd be $7,500. So we've got 2,500, 2,500 minus 7,500. So that's going to leave me with $17,500. Now, I still have to cover my materials. I have to cover all of my mud. I have to cover all of my time. So say this job takes me, be a pretty good size house. So if it's 2,000 square feet, so say Ryan and I are on the job, it takes us 7 days and we have 160 hours in there. So then we take that, what was it, 17.5 by 160. Okay, so we would be getting 109.37 an hour. But we also have materials and everything else that we're having to take off of that. So you really need to be careful when you are bidding that you're not underbidding yourself and you're not putting yourself in a spot where you're making like $20 an hour. Like that's a good wage. That's a nice wage. We don't typically charge under, $100 an hour. We need to make money and we need to make profit, and we're very experienced and we have a lot of time in the business, and it'd be like, hiring a 20-year-old or 20-year experienced software person or something along those lines. Like, don't underbid yourself. Some other things that come into play is what type of corner bead is going on. If it's just like a straight up square, that's fine. You can kind of get your price a little bit from there. If it's going to go bullnose and it's a bunch of full wrap stuff and you have, 3 ways coming into each other everywhere, bump up your price. It's going to take a lot more time to do wrap bullnose windows than it is to do square windows. Same thing with chamfer or some of the more specialty products. You got to take more time to get those right. So, then you could be looking at a 15 to 20 cent price increase. And then, depending on what materials are looking like, what kind of brand of corner bead they want to go with, that can also change things. So it can be very widely variable, and it's hard to say, I would charge X without actually seeing the job, knowing what your market is. But those are at least some numbers you can kind of go off of to bid okay. And definitely make sure you're working through your numbers. If you have a lot of employees and you have a lot of overhead, obviously you're going to need to make sure that you're making enough money to keep everybody going, keep your jobs going. But I mean, being self-employed is hard. It's hard to make money sometimes because you want the work and you want to make sure that, you know, you have jobs going on, but don't take it just to take it. I mean, one thing that is really hard with the drywall industry is we really have no straightforward pricing. Everybody's all over the map. Like I could come in at $250, somebody else could come in at $1. Somebody could come in at, you know, $4 a foot. So it can be so wild, and I really wish there was more industry standard pricing. You know, maybe that's something we can work towards together as an industry of this is really where our minimum price should be, and we should all not go lower than that. Because what happens, especially when you're looking at jobs, is sometimes you will take the lowest bid. I get it, you want to save money. But in taking the lowest bid, you have to understand these people are going to be rushing through. They're not going to be taking their time. They're going to be probably cutting corners because they don't have the money in it. You'll be wind up having subpar materials, and the work just won't be good. And it's so much better to actually get a good quality drywall finisher, because I'm gonna tell you right now, if I have to come in and fix somebody else's work, it's gonna be costing you 4 times as much as it would have to just go with the better bid in the first place. And it's a lot harder to fix it after it's done than it is to just do it right in the first place. So that's just kind of bidding. Honestly, guys, don't take my numbers for like, yeah, she said this. If it's totally just whatever, it really does change. If we're going up to the Yellowstone Club or we're doing something super huge and super custom, commercial, I mean, it's kind of all over the map. So don't take my numbers as hard numbers. It was just kind of a guesstimate, I guess you could say. But anyway, that's it for me this week. I hope you guys are doing great, and I will catch you next week with a brand new video. And you can catch me on all the socials under Drywall Shorty. Have a great day, guys.